It was a scorching day like any other in the Garo region. The solar sphere known as Trumbull had just begun to sink from its celestial perch, and yet for many more hours it refused to relent. The evergreen forest sucked the light down like a thirsty narlock. Ryobis was a fledgling world, its colony clinging tightly to a booming lumber industry and rich promethium depositories. Aside from the recent occupation of humanity, it had been peaceful and untouched for millions of years. This was about to change. An industrial drilling and logging operation had just begun in the northeast quadrant, no different from any other. Machines the size of 4-story buildings went to work cutting and thumping away at the rich natural resources of the region. Unlike many before it, this one happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. A drill bore down deep and encountered a stone unlike any other. It was black as night and seemed to be cut with some sort of intelligent design. A structure, perhaps? The industrial drill did not care, and it continued its harassment of the blockage beneath. No one could have possibly accounted for what it would uncover. A hole was punched through the black stone, and a sickly orange glow washed over the dark depths. Something terrible was uncovered, something that never should have been, even by the design of those that made it. As it turned out, a destroyer cult composed of former members of the Mefrit dynasty was held there in hard stasis. These once loyal hands of the Silent King had been infected with a terrible virus that contorted their minds, and in turn they contorted their bodies to further their ambitions of destroying all life. After millions of years of slumber, these wretched automatons were free once more. Once online and exposed to the open air, they lost no time in resuming their crimson harvest. Hordes of vile machines spilled forth from the breached quarantine vault and began to attack the nearest living things. They mulched miners and lacerated lumberjacks like it was going out of style. Nothing was spared from their rampage, not even flora or fauna. All life was to kneel low before them. It didn't take long for humanity to respond in kind. An Astartes battlecruiser known as the Maximum Prejudice had been in low orbit over the Garo region and was running deep scans for a Tyranid threat it had reason to believe could have infiltrated the planet. This ship was crewed by the revered Blood Angels Space Marine chapter. Once they figured out what was going on, the Angels wasted no time deploying. Several drop pods struck the Earth in the 4-kilo-wide logging camp. Primaris Marines, supported by a Redemptor dreadnought, spilled out from the drop pods and took up firing positions. Their immediate plan had been to dig in and act as an anvil for their jump pack-equipped comrades to hammer down upon. Hundreds of Necrons approached with a rapidity uncommon to their race. They engaged their new prey with the instinctual programming of a line cook engaging a new meal ticket. The Emperor's finest fired fast and accurately, blowing chunks out of Necron warriors left and right with bolters and melted others to slag with plasma guns. The Redemptor found itself the target of a swarm of metallic beetles and welcomed them in kind with its heavy flamer and Gatling cannon. They melted away like pocket chocolates. This was merely a distraction, however, as a large destroyer skiff hovered into position and punched gaping holes into the Redemptor's battle chassis. The infantry marines didn't fare much better. Sure, they were killing their enemy 4-1, but it didn't really matter when the enemy casualties simply got back up. A swarm of warriors rose and fell and rose again. The living mass grave shambled towards its victims and consumed them with eldritch fire and flensing blades. Ceramite gave way to flesh, and flesh gave way to bone. By the time their reinforcements hit the dirt, it was already too late. Most of the Primaris Marines had been turned into a statistic. The Death Company Marines joined in the melee. With Inferno pistols and chain blades, they had begun to make a considerable dent in the horde. They were doing well. A hard-fought victory seemed to be just on the horizon for them. That changed when IT showed up. Behind the jump Marines, a shimmering black portal opened up and released a true bastard apparatus. A destroyer lord with many legs and limbs and guns and blades emerged. A trio of scaled-down replicas of itself flanked it to create a menacing entourage. The Skorpek destroyers and their lord cut through the Death Company Marines like chaff. Any that tried to retreat found themselves held firmly by the still regenerating warrior horde they hadn't yet finished off. A kilometer away, Captain Thaddeus arrived searching for that very destroyer lord that had just been on this side of the war zone. It was nowhere in sight. It mattered not. Foul Xenos were still before him, and he intended to purge them from this world. A small squad of automatons took potshots at him from a distance, and his relic shield took it in stride the same way it had done the blades and hellfire of 1,000 demons who had fallen before him. Easy, he thought to himself. He powered his jump pack in preparation for a leap into what would soon be notches on his belt. However, something yet undetected waited for him in the atmosphere. As Thaddeus rose into the sky, he was met with the sudden unnerving visage of a metal crescent. Orange lightning crackled towards him. He dodged the incoming storm with practiced ease. What he didn't realize, however, is that it wasn't for him. It arced and trickled down into the Redemptor dreadnought below, burning holes in armor plate and frying subsystems, certainly spelling its doom. Thaddeus turned to look at the carnage and then turned back to face the mysterious aircraft. A beam of eldritch light as wide as he was slammed into him with incomprehensible force. His shield took it for but one tender moment before every bone in his arm turned to powder and cast it aside. The death ray blasted on and forced the distinguished captain back down into one of the logging machines, smearing him to pieces against it like a bug on a shower wall. Command and Control watched as this scene unfolded in horror and ordered an immediate evacuation of any survivors. A storm speeder burned through the air and dove low to skirt the planet's surface. It was able to scoop up a few stragglers and the obliterated captain due to the valiant covering fire of the dying dreadnought. Back aboard the ship, a small army of psychers, apothecaries, and tech marines managed through great effort to stabilize what was left of their captain. He was left in parts and pieces scattered in many regrowth vats. The surviving lobes of his brain, tethered together with cables, managed to manifest a single thought. Vengeance! This wretched event would be known as the first of many battles on Ryobis.